To the Fifth Industrial Revolution Research and Innovation Forum. My name is Nokuthula Shongwe. I will be the program director for today, taking you through the program and directing briefly how the program is going to run today. We are hosting a Fifth Industrial Revolution Forum to discuss the transition from 4IR to 5IR. It's a conversation that is an important conversation that Moses Kotane has seen the need to start the conversation. We will start the program with a few presentations. Thereafter, we will have a panel discussion. We will open the floor for Q&A. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome on stage our CEO, who will take us through the opening and just give us a brief of the importance of today and why we've decided to host this event this morning. If you can just give a round of applause to our CEO, Dr. Thandeka Ellinson.
Thank you, Program Director, Ms. Shongwe. To the Honorable MEC, Mr. Ravi Pillay, the Board of the Moses Kotane Institute, distinguished keynote speaker, Mr. Vusi Tembegwayo, distinguished presenters and panel members for today, members of academia, business, government, and citizens, graduates, and new research candidates, honorable guests that have joined us physically and virtually, as well as the hard-working team of the Moses Kotane Institute. Good morning and welcome to the Moses Kotane Institute. We are the leading research institute in the province. We are the voice of the people of KwaZulu-Natal through research and innovation. Today marks an inaugural day as we will be taking you through and talking about the Fifth Industrial Revolution for the first time in the province. In 2019, the Institute hosted the discussions here at the ICC on Fourth Industrial Revolution. We were already late in 2019, but nevertheless we hosted the summit here at the ICC. And the 4IR discussions were characterized by the blurring lines between the physical, the digital, and the biological spheres. We tried to make sense of the 4IR and what it meant, to the KwaZulu-Natal province. And as a result, we developed a strategy together with industry leaders and academia, the digital transformation strategy that puts connectivity and digital skilling as the first two priorities of the digital transformation. The strategy has got about 10 pillars. We spearheaded the rollout of the 4IR by establishing the digital centers, mostly in rural areas. Currently, we have 9 digital centers. We evaluated the skills, the economic status, with the aim of bringing the digital transformation to life and trying to bring the digital divide, to bridge the digital divide across, different spheres and different communities. We focused mostly on rural communities while others were focusing on urban areas. It's only fitting that in 2022, again, MKI brings public and private sector, academia and business, to discuss the Fifth Industrial Revolution, which seems to be a little bit easier than the Fourth Industrial Revolution because I think we've learned our lessons. The Fifth Industrial Revolution is a time when the digitization will operate hand in hand with humanization. But I think it will be a little bit easier compared to 4R because I think we've learned our lessons. Mark Bainhoff, the founder of Salesforce, indicated that we have seen the keys that mark the beginning of the 5th Industrial Revolution. And I believe we have witnessed some of these. For an example, the number of people working remotely is increasing. We've seen implantable technologies for health and other purposes, growing. 3D printing is here with us, even at our digital centers. As the Moses Kotane Institute, we have the 3D printers. And this is where you see, for an example, RDP houses being built in a day using this technology. Never mind that the country is not using this technology. We've seen the rise and increase in usage of chatbots for customer experience, and we are now used to this AI technology. There are claims that soon there will be no need to carry cards and cell phones, as these will be implanted, in a form of chips. And we already know that religious communities have a view on such technologies. We have seen the explorations and experiments and tests on self-driving cars, and there are many examples, on this. But the challenge is that we woke up too late as a country and as a province. Way too late to an extent that today we are discussing the 5IR, yet we have not been totally and completely satisfied with the implementation of the 4IR. There are still areas that are not connected in the province. People are still struggling with data. There are still people that are not skilled digitally. There are still some government departments and companies that are still not familiar with the paperless environment. If you talk paperless, that is foreign, to them. Systems are still not integrated in the province. For an example, if you are sick today and you go to a hospital in Durban, you have to open a file, but then perhaps say in September you get sick again and you are in Newcastle or in Mpangeni, you will go to the hospital there and you will still open another file because there's no systems integration. Let alone education department and social development. That is a big problem. Ideally, we should be having one ID, one file per citizen, but that is not the case. So that shows you how far we are from being digitized. Everybody is talking 4th Industrial Revolution, but people are not really actively practicalizing the 4th Industrial Revolution. Home Affairs has assisted us in using the biometric system. We have progressed in that area. For an example, when you go to the bank, you put your fingerprint on the scanner, at least your ID details come up. But how is research, innovation, and technology solving our problems in the society today? Research tells us that gender-based violence has escalated. What have we innovated, and how is technology assisting us in solving this societal challenge? Research tells us that there's an increase in crime. How is innovation and technology assisting us then? Research tells us that, people are cutting their toes and selling them for money. We have seen this on social media. Research tells us that the human trafficking is on the rise, but we are not tracking, our people. We're still struggling. How is technology innovation assist us in this regard? Research tells us that in the past 10 years, expenses have increased by more than 130%, yet earnings have only increased by less than 40%. Research tells us that we are not and we have not been able to deal with natural disasters such as floods. You know, we've had floods happen, taking place twice already in the past few months in KwaZulu-Natal. Yet we do not have technology to assist us in this. We are not even entrapping, the water that is coming through the rain. We will struggle with the floods for a few days, and thereafter we'll struggle with shortages of water. Yet we have research that tells us that we can entrap, this water and can reuse it, recycle. Some families have not found, their loved ones. We have not innovated on helpful and assistive devices in this. We have still not found ways to entrap our water. And when we look at the scale of production, South Africa is not even in the top 30 of the countries that are productive. If the fifth industrial revolution is merging humans and machines, if the fifth industrial revolution is the equilibrium basis on economical and material aspects of transformation and evolution, and if the fifth industrial revolution is the rise of human intelligence, if the fifth industrial revolution is focusing on innovation and inclusivity, what is it that we need to do then? What is it that we need to do differently? The question is, why are we here today? The reason why we're here today is to discuss exactly that. We are honored to have in our midst Mr. Vusi Tembekwayo today, who is very practical about how disruption or how disruptive technologies can bring value. Why don't we use this, to bring value to our citizens, let alone business? But why are our citizens struggling so much when we have so many educated people in our societies? Why are we not innovating to bring value and ease, to our citizens? We really need to practicalize the fifth industrial revolution. And honestly, why is it that in this day and age, government does not adopt a business-like attitude, a business-like approach to solve the societal issues? MKI provides funding to researchers, postgraduate students whose research will influence policy, will assist in decision-making on certain subjects, and will assist on service delivery interventions. So I have mentioned research, innovation, and technology. And today we are going to discuss these three things. One, we are going to celebrate our students that have graduated, postgraduate students. We are going to welcome new students to their research program, and we are going to have an introductory conversation on the fifth industrial revolution, and this is the first in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. I don't know if others are discussing it in the country, but in KwaZulu-Natal, it's the first discussion. So in our discussion, I wish that we discuss 5IR practically in a very simple language that can be understood by young people, because youth is the future. And today we are having the Youth Day. Let us see progress in our discussions. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to the Moses Kotane Institute, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ellenson. I think one thing I liked from your speech is that we will be discussing in very simple language. The idea of 5IR, I don't know, for me, it seems like a very, very big idea. So I'm glad that we have professionals or experts in the field who will be able to break it down for us. So without further ado, we'll go to our first presentation. Our first speaker is Dr. Yasira Ismail. She holds a PhD in quantum physics from the University of KwaZulu-Natal. She's a senior lecturer of Physics within the School of Chemistry and Physics at the KwaZulu-Natal University. She leads experimental activities within Quantum Research Group at UKZN. Dr. Ishmael's research is based on the advancement of quantum technology, specializing in improving optical techniques for quantum communication. Quite a mouthful. Dr. Ishmael will be giving us a presentation on the development towards a quantum internet. Without further ado, can we give her a round of applause?
Okay, so good morning. It's such a pleasure to stand here before you at this very informative conference on the Fifth Industrial Revolution. And it's even more a pleasure to be speaking straight after the CEO of the Moses Kotane Institute, Dr. Ellenson. And I would like to thank the Moses Kotane Institute for this opportunity to present a very interesting topic, and that's the development towards quantum internet. And I'm going to focus on this because this is innovation. And innovation towards where we foresee the direction of how quantum plays a role in our development of the ICT space. So we are here to discuss this fusing of the Fourth Industrial Revolution and the Fifth Industrial Revolution. And we know that the Fourth Industrial Revolution brought to us this very important technologies, and these are the technologies that are related to information. And what I mean by information, we're talking about artificial intelligence, IoT. We're talking about big data. And the key concept between all these technologies is information. However, what is important is that information needs to be secure. And so you need to find ways to ensure the security of information. And this then leads to the discussion of how the technology of the Fourth Industrial Revolution will speak to the Fifth Industrial Revolution. So, as I say, a lot of the concepts and innovation around the Fourth Industrial Revolution is information. And we all know that we need to keep information secure. And currently, our classical methods of ensuring the security of information is based on mathematical constructs. So the inability to factorize very large numbers. We also know that if we have powerful resources, we can break encryption techniques. And these are just some of the list of encryption techniques that were produced in the past and broken because of powerful resources. Now, you may ask yourself, why is this so important? Well, if you're following the media, you would know that one of the key concepts of the Fourth Industrial Revolution is the development of a quantum computer. And globally, there is a lot of traction as well as investment to develop a quantum computer. Well, what does a quantum computer do best? It does this. It factorizes large numbers. So it breaks encryption techniques. And so when we have a fault-tolerant universal quantum computer, however long that may take, we know that the first thing that a universal quantum computer will do best is break our current encryption techniques. And so we have to look at alternative ways to ensure the security of information. And so we may be here talking about the Fifth Industrial Revolution. We are all aware of the opportunities of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. However, in the quantum landscape, we are in what is known as the Second Quantum Revolution. So the first quantum revolution brought us technologies that we are all aware of. Everyone knows what a laser is. Everyone knows a diode, and everyone knows a transistor. These are technologies we cannot do without. And these are the technologies that was developed during the first quantum revolution, as well as the technology that is used now in the second quantum revolution. So these technologies have paved the way for us to develop technologies of the second quantum revolution. And these are technologies such as quantum computers, quantum communication, as well as quantum mythology. And what we're seeing is this shift from the classical ICT space towards a quantum ICT space. So what are these technologies? We all know about quantum computers. We also know that quantum computers are available on the cloud. They are limited in the functionality that they can do. But researchers are working tirelessly to build that universal quantum computer. Some of the opportunities that quantum computer poses is that they can solve problems that classical computers cannot, such as drug delivery, network optimization, and what I mean by they cannot solve it they can solve it at a faster pace than classical computers. Quantum communication, the next pillar of the second quantum revolution, is key to the fourth industrial revolution. Why? It's all about the security of information. We want to have a network, a secure network. We want to have connected vehicles. These connected vehicles need to ensure that the security between connected vehicles are there. We want to ensure that critical infrastructure like big data centers are secure. We also want to ensure that medical data or long-term data is kept secure. And that speaks to the field of quantum communication. The last field is quantum metrology. And this is the third pillar of the second quantum revolution. And this looks at synchronization of our clocks, or looking at GPS-aided navigation. All that is required to ensure that we can sense more precisely to achieve some of our goals at societal level as well. So I'm going to focus this morning only on the development of quantum communication. And the reason why is because I want to engage with you what is meant by a quantum internet. So this is taken out from the OIDA Quantum Photonics Roadmap. And this roadmap was engaged with researchers throughout the world that looked at where we are in terms of state-of-the-art technology in the field of quantum communication, as well as where are we going. And so they foresee by the year 2035 plus, we would be in the space or this landscape of developing what is known as a quantum internet. But before that, we need a number of different technologies to be developed. Some of these technologies are already commercially available, such as fiber-based quantum communication systems. However, the need is now to develop, every country to develop satellite-based quantum communication systems. And that is why I'm going to unwrap for you today. I'm going to unwrap what we as UKZN is doing to develop satellite-based quantum communication in South Africa. And I'm going to also unwrap for you what is meant by a quantum internet. So we just heard these three main pillars of the second quantum revolution. Well, to develop a quantum internet, it would mean creating a distributed network, a quantum network that links quantum communication, quantum computers, as well as precise measurements, sensors, so quantum metrology systems, so very secure sensors, into a distributed network. You may ask, how is that then going to fuse with classical technology? And I'll get to that in the end. However, let's first unwrap what I mean by quantum communication. So I already told you that classical or conventional encryption techniques are based on mathematical algorithm. So what you would picture is that you have a stream of bits of ones and zeros that forms part of your classical encryption technique. This is based on mathematical constructs. Quantum communication is slightly different. We do not depend on mathematical algorithms. We depend on a physical system of generating a secure key for encryption. What I mean by a physical system, we physically encode single bits of photons. So we encode single photons into these bits of ones and zeros, which we transmit across a quantum channel from a transmitter to a receiver. Once both have shared a key, we ensure that that key is secure, and that secured key then can be used to encrypt information. Now, because this is a physical process, there are a number of requirements. One of the first requirements is that we want to be able to generate a single photon source. So a source that can produce single photons. So think of taking a laser that has billions of photons and trying to just manipulate just a single photon. Okay, and then you take that single photon, so you can think the sensitivity in which these systems are built. You take a single photon and you can encode it into either a bit of 1 and 0, and then you can transmit it across a quantum channel. Okay, so what are our quantum channels? Our quantum channels are both fiber and free space. we all know about fiber. We all have fiber to the home, or some of us do. There are a lot of areas in South Africa and Africa that are still not connected. But we do know how transmission through fiber works. And so one of the channels, a quantum channel, can be a fiber. Alternatively, you have a point-to-point. So think of a line of sight where you can transmit a single photon through the atmosphere. And the last part is through satellites. So think of either sending a single photon from a ground station, so a point on Earth, up to a satellite, or vice versa, sending a single photon from a satellite to a point or a ground station on Earth. So these are our possibilities, that we can send these single photons to generate encrypted keys that can be used to secure communication or information. So I'm going to actually talk to this project, and this is called the QSAP project, or Quantum Satellite and Fiber Communication Project, that we at UKZN is working to build together with collaborators in China. And we intend to develop a ground station to link to the Chinese satellite, the Mooc satellite, that is already launched into the lower Earth orbital. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a brief overview of what the current state of the art is, which we in South Africa would like to work towards. So currently, China is leading the race in the development of a quantum network. They have a 2,000-kilometer link, and this is a fiber link that runs between the major cities of Shanghai to Beijing. And already they are able to actually incorporate this into the business sector and the financial sector. And so they have end users that are using this quantum fiber communication system to ensure the security of information. They're also able to develop the first satellite-based communication. So they have launched the satellite, the Mooc satellite, that you see on the far end, and this is launched into the lower Earth orbital, and they were able to implement not just a downlink, but also an uplink to implement quantum communication. Furthermore, they have the record for the longest quantum communication link of 7,600 kilometers, and this is between them and the city of Vienna in Austria. And what was interesting is when they were able to secure this link, they were actually demonstrated a secure communication link over a Skype call. So they were able to secure a Skype call to prove that the encryption technique works. Okay, so this is the state of the art. So what do we want to do? Well, we actually need to develop what is known as a quantum network. So what is a quantum network? A quantum network means that we have to take fiber-based quantum communication as well as satellite-based quantum communication and fuse it together to develop an entire network, an integrated network. And the world's first of these quantum networks are in fact in China with our collaborators, and we aim to develop some similar situation here in South Africa. There is this global race towards the development of quantum satellite communication and the development of ground stations in almost every country right now to develop what is known as a quantum internet. So how do we proceed? Well, what we are aiming to do through this QSAP project together with our collaborators is to develop a ground station. And this ground station will be a portable ground station that will be implemented at the University of KwaZulu-Natal Westville campus. And basically it will link up to that Mooc satellite in order to produce South Africa's first quantum communication system or network. It will also probably be the longest quantum communication link via satellite. And so this is what we're aiming to do. Now, you may ask, why is this so important? We need, as a country, to start developing these type technologies as well. We cannot always depend on our collaborators and counterparts. So you may not know, but recently DSI has started this funding the South African Quantum Initiative. And the South African Quantum Initiative speaks to innovations of this nature, where we want to develop in-house quantum communication systems or quantum sensors and start this kind of ecosystem for quantum startups in South Africa and produce a pipeline of skilled researchers and engineers that can then develop these types of technologies, not just we importing it from other countries, but to develop these type of technologies in our own country. And so we're hoping that this South African Quantum Initiative will be fruitful to the development of a quantum ecosystem in South Africa. These types of technologies, not just so I'd like to actually end with this, and to technologies in our own country. And so we're hoping that this South African Quantum Initiative will be fruitful to the development of a quantum ecosystem in South Africa. So I'd like to actually end with this and to just basically remind you that this quantum communication network can be actually, and we envision this, that it be linked to a classical network as well. So the envision is that we can develop this quantum internet, and this is the global race towards this development of a quantum internet. It will be severely dependent on satellite-based communication. It will link to quantum computers. And the whole aim is to develop a network that is secure for the encryption of information. And this is important because if we look at the fourth industrial revolution or the fifth industrial revolution, information is key. And if information is key, then we need to ensure that the security of the information is kept. And so this is why the need for the development towards a quantum internet is so important. And so I'd like to end there. And thank you again for this opportunity to engage with you this morning and to basically present some perspective on the innovation towards a quantum internet. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Dr. Ismail for that lovely presentation. Our next speaker is an entrepreneur who specializes in technology and innovation, Mr. Dave Ponce. He's also a lecturer at Mangosuthu University of Technology. He will be giving us a presentation on robot food. If we can give him a round of applause as he makes his way to stage.
MKI staff, congratulations once again. You're awesome in promoting innovation and technology, and I always appreciate you, and it's always a pleasure to be involved with any of your programs. Stars of the show have to obviously be you youth over here today. I just feel so blessed to see so much youth, and you're obviously innovators. If you weren't interested in innovation, you wouldn't really be here. So you're interested in innovation, you want things to go forward. Congratulations on being here. I just wish you all the best in the future and the things that you are doing. The only tip that I can tell you at this stage is focus on your CVs. Start writing trial CVs. CVs are like training, like when someone runs a marathon or trains for football. You need to do one and update it and improve your skills. Your CV that you got taught by your teacher at your high school, forget about that. Make a good CV. Those who are employing people will understand what I'm talking about. So work on your CVs. My mother passed away a few years ago, and because we were a family of innovators, I asked her one day, what is the most important innovation that happened in her life, over the span of her life? I said to her, was it the motor car? Because when she was born in the end of the 20s, in 1920 that is, and because they had horses and things, and then they had motor cars. It's like, no, it wasn't that. It's a very easy answer, she says to me. So I said, she says, carry on guessing. She says, well, what? So I said, was it the electricity that came, and you all got electricity from Canada? I said, no, it wasn't that electricity. And then she was very adoptive in computers. She said, was it a computer? No. I said, well, it must have been the email that came, and the internet. The internet came, and she was on email in 95, which was a long time ago, early adopters of it. And so I carried on until it was cell phone. She says the most important innovation of her time was plastic, funnily enough. She said because things were made out of metal and they were very difficult to make, and suddenly we have plastic that came and innovated. So it's something that you wouldn't directly assume to be the biggest innovation of the time. So then I asked myself, what is the biggest innovation that has affected my life or is expected to affect my life in the particular future? And my answer is what I'm alluding to today, is robot food. So robot food, as we're going to see as we go along, robot food is electricity, which is battery. So to me, a battery is the future. A battery is the innovation that affects my life in an absolutely great way. You and I, how much do we need our cell phones? How much do we use that device, our computers, our electronic devices that we do have? So this is the innovation that we do. So robot food, let's start and have a look at that over here. So first of all, 4R was over here, and 4R was always about efficiency, and we like to think as a robot as that. Don't people do that beautiful robot dances, you know? It's amazing. So robots are here in their different forms, and a robot could be, as the CEO said, as simple as a chatbot. It could be as simple as a program. It doesn't actually have to be something that looks like a particular human or so on. So we didn't fear the 4R. We got stuck into the 4R, especially the people that are here. We liked it and we got involved, and so we weren't scared of this particular thing over here too. Then came the Internet of Things. As the doctor was explaining now, it's all the linked information together, which is great, and we needed that. Now, I come from an agricultural background, and I knew about AI. At university, I did AI, and that was a very long time ago. I wasn't very good at AI, and everyone in agriculture knew that AI was this, artificial insemination. And all of you who drank some milk today or had some milk in a coffee, every single dairy cow that makes your milk is inseminated like that. So you simply put your hand inside the cow, feel for the and inseminate the cow with the pistolet with the frozen semen. So it was normal. But unfortunately, it's moved on, and now everyone knows AI is finally, we've got a lawyer that bills for 25 hours work, but actually works 24 hours a day. So AI is busy grinding around there. We like that. We're all using AI. As you open your phone, and then you see that the phone is sending information to you that you like. So if you searched a certain area or topic, it's going to come back with more searches. So you're using AI. So there's nothing strange about that over there. Unfortunately, I'm traveling next week to Switzerland and European countries for some innovation, and whenever I go there, I say to the people, we'll turn at the robot, and they look at me, it's like a robot. Like when I tell you a checkers, you're going to laugh at me. We know a checkers is a plastic packet, not so. To us, a robot is that thing that has got those 3 colors on. Okay, nowhere in the rest of the world do they talk about robots as these things over here too. So robots don't have to look like humans. They can simply be programmed. Go online, you can see the way the robots are building cars, the mechanization that they have. It's just fantastic. There's a lot of technology, but it doesn't have to do that. So robot food, electricity is not really the problem. Storage is the problem. The battery is the particular problem. These are the problem. We are going through the process of changing the web, and we've got that is developing. Like we've got Web 1 that we're on at the moment. Then we've got Web 2, which is using the information that we've got, and then we've got the Web 3 that is using that is going to check everything via blockchain. So it's going to check all these transactions, and already you're creeping into the Web 3, because when you do your banking, sometimes it says to you, turn your location on. Turn your location on. So what it's doing is it's cross-checking where your location is. So you want to make this financial transaction. So it's going to take often says, my banking app says take a selfie. And some of you may have, you take a selfie, so it's got that. Then it says, if it's above a certain amount of money, turn your location on. It's like, does Dave Ponce move in these areas? Does Dave Ponce, is he in Lagos, Nigeria? It's like, no, he's not in Lagos, Nigeria. So it's doing all these double checks. So that's effectively what Web 3 is going to do. It's going to make everything safer. It's going to double check things. It's going to work out the encryption so that we are able to sort of have a safer future over here. Okay, batteries. We've got like massive potential. We survived the pandemic like totally amazingly. And the reason we survived it is because the mines in our country delivered a whole lot of minerals, and the international price of the mineral commodities was extremely high. So it's going to carry on. Like, do you think we're going to need less batteries? Do you think we're going to make less batteries in the world? Do you think the world is going to need those things? And yes, we are going to need it. So we've got this massive potential in South Africa. We've got the raw materials. We're digging them out the ground over here. We're sending them off to other places, and they're coming back over here. So we've got sunshine. It's fantastic. So we've got the things that can make the electricity. We've got wave energy. There's some beautiful projects of waves over here too. We've got tidal wave energy. I really like this way of making electricity. People on the coast are building these like tidal pools, and then the water's flowing into the pool by the waves, and as it's flowing out, it's through a turbine, and it's creating the electricity as it's flowing out. So it's not something bobbing up and down in the ocean as you would imagine a wave. So they're using waves like this. We've got masses of wind energy. So we've got this stuff. We've got this in the country. So I'm saying to you, there are lots of opportunities for you upstream and downstream in the careers that you would like to choose. Don't choose a dead career. Don't choose a dead career. Someone told me 3 years ago they bought a business of a DVD shop. I'm like, no. There were older people. It's like, no, don't do that. DVD. I mean, people don't even know what I'm talking about over here. So in your careers, you must choose something that's going to be the new technology. And as we move from 4IR, we're going to move into other fields of the technology. And you may not be immediately upskilled into quantum physics and things like that, but you can consider the energy spectrum and the battery spectrum in that and see how we are going to use that particular thing. So of course, batteries are the robot food. I'm not talking about the old alkaline batteries that you put in the thing, and then the next thing it's like gone already. And if you think about those of you who have who've got children and you buy them a toy, and it's like, the batteries cost more than the toy, and then they leave the thing on, and then you've got to buy more batteries. So we're getting away from that old battery thing that we had. We're getting away from I remember how quickly your mobile phone used to lose its battery charge. So we're onto new batteries, new battery technologies and things like that. Of course, there's the founder of electric cars and the main guy who did the electric cars, Elon Musk. I don't have much to say about him. He may be the richest man in the world, and he's great. But if you disown South Africa, then I can't say very much for you. So I'm going to tell you a joke about him. I don't understand why Elon Musk wanted to buy Twitter for $40 billion, because you can get it for free on the App Store. Okay, but listen, he did some work and whatever over there. Let's not go on. So there are going to be lots of other electric cars. Thankfully, there are not lots of other electric cars. That's like totally amazing. I had an amazing trip to Eswatini in a hybrid BMW 3 weeks ago. And it was a self-drive car. It was totally amazing. They're here in South Africa. People are driving them. So hybrid means it's got battery power and it's got also got a petrol power, which is great. So you don't have to sit and you don't have to charge the particular car or look for a charge over there too. And it was a self-drive, and it's we have legislation in this country that you have to touch the steering wheel every 2 minutes. You have to touch the steering wheel every 2 minutes. And so the person was driving the car, and every 2 minutes, and having coffee, and talking to me like this, and I'm like, you should be looking at the road, you should be looking at the road. And it just drove absolutely perfectly. It didn't do the overtaking, but it came up behind the other cars, and every 2 minutes he'd have to just touch the steering wheel just like that, and then it would carry on driving. When we got to the toll, simply stopped at the toll. It was amazing. It's here. It's not even something of the future. Okay, controlled by a battery, hybrid cell, recharging. I think we're going to go that way because we like our time. We're trying to do so much in one day. We're trying to drink coffee and drive and do these things. There are careers in battery. There is a battery university. How cool is this? Online battery university. What university did you go to? I went to the battery university. Yeah, that is such a good comment. For those who didn't hear, it's like, I'm sorry, I can't even carry on speaking. That was so good. I'll repeat it. He says, how much do they charge? With a pun on the word charge over there. Okay, I hope all of you, old and young, including myself, have done some MOOCs. When people come to me and say, like, I want to get educated, I can't afford university, I didn't get, it's like, well, go and do a MOOC. It's like, oh, well, it's like, well, then you're not serious about wanting to be educated. So MOOC is a massive open online course all over the internet. You can find a course of your particular field where you can study this particular thing and learn about it. I don't know much about batteries. I really don't know much about it. But if I wanted to go into a career, an early stage career, I would go and do MOOCs on batteries and study it and get some form of certificate or qualification or understanding on batteries. And whatever field you're in, you should be doing MOOCs over there. Some of them you have to pay a little bit of money. A lot of them are for free. You work it out, and it's great tuition over here too. So we need minerals. We've got these big mines that dig the stuff up over there. Magnesium, ilmenite, zircon, titanium, manganese, magnesium. These are all things that they're going to need to put inside the battery. So we've got them in this particular country. So you can tell your less educated people than you, go and focus on those places. Go and focus on those places because we are going to need more of those particular materials and things like that. So that is going to be a sustainable job that you are going to need to continue with in the future over there. So there are lots of types of batteries and technologies. The molten salt battery, we have sodium batteries that change charges over here. Of course, you all know the lithium-ion batteries that are rechargeable, and all different fields over there. Battery uses has got up a lot. Most people that are building houses and homes are now using battery-operated tools, so that's fantastic. The cars are of supreme great importance, and it's really quite it's quite easy for the governments to push these sort of technologies in the same way as that they pushed away the tobacco. So what they do with the tobacco is they put legislation so you had to print it is dangerous for you, and they charge the tax. They charge a higher tax on alcohol so that people minimize the alcohol. They charge a higher tax on sugar so that they reduced it. So government is able to control things a lot more than you and I think about. They have capacity to control things. And so when you go to countries such as Australia and you hire a car in Australia, if you hire an electric car, it costs you like half the price of a petrol car, because they're trying to push people into that direction of using the electric one, because the government is taxing the people that are using this particular thing. Can you imagine if you're in an electric car and you had this fuel increase of R2 or something a litre? It's like, yeah, well, that's fine, you know. My electricity cost remained roughly the same. So that's where we're going. I think a lot of your young children that you have now will be driving electric cars when they're able to drive. So I think we're going to have a lot more. Whenever I travel in Europe, I get quite scared in the car park. I'm like a child in a car park, because in a normal car park here, we hear this car coming next to us. If you've ever been in a car park with an electric car, you don't hear anything. You suddenly see a car's next to you, and it's like, I nearly walked into that car. So there are a whole lot of adoptions, and we'll get them in the charging points and things like that. But it's really, really great. The other battery uses that you're going to foresee in the future, if we crystal ball over here, and we can see that obviously the Eskom thing is pretty much failing us, and so there are a lot of different ways of generating electricity. The city of Cape Town's got ways, and then they put their electricity back into the particular grids, and once again, the biggest problem is storage. Once again, the biggest problem is storage. So we have the Kwatlamba Drakensberg scheme, and what they do is they pump the water up high in the mountains, and then at night they release the water, and they release it through when they need it. At the night time they pump it up, in the daytime they release it, and it spins the turbine and creates electricity. But we often have flat places we do it. We are going to have, the future is going to be like a salt battery the size of the ICC. That's going to be the future. A salt battery the size of ICC. And then the individual houses, whoever want to have houses, whoever want to invest, will be able to invest in solar panels on their roofs. They will be having net meters. A lot of people have already got meters on their particular roofs. In Durban, they don't have a thing called a net meter. We don't allow that yet, but in a lot of other cities they do. So if you generate electricity, your meter turns the other way. So you effectively don't pay for the evening electricity that you need. So you are then pumping electricity into the particular grid. So you are saving electricity because you invested in those PV panels that you put on all your wind things, or your water that you've got flowing in your particular area. So then you pump it in there. So that's already happening. We can understand that technology. That's our problem. Our problem is actually storage. So you're going to have a storage here the size of this. Can you imagine? We are not going to need power lines in between cities, those big power lines in between cities. I remember about 8 years ago, the metal thieves undid all the bolts in the power line towards Toyota, that big metal thing, and all the power lines fell down. We're not going to need power lines because each municipality will start, or each town will start, and they'll have their own particular storage. So the batteries are going to become bigger and more important over here. So, of course, linked to 5IR is we've got to get the humans and we've got to get the climate. So we've got the tech, and we're going quite well in the tech, and we've got AI that's like teaching us how to do things over there. But we've got to get humans and climate going. We made a really good job of messing up it, and I think probably our parents were the worst ones. And then we were pretty bad, and you younger people are actually pretty good. You're pretty good about it. You have less waste than we do. We have an understanding. So we've got to do something about climate change over here. We've also got to do something about the sustainable goals, which you all know about. So we've got to link those things together. So 5IR is going to link this with the technology on it over here. So there are a whole lot of 5IR things that are happening, and we spoke about robots, and we spoke about AI, and for those of you who haven't used this is something that's called GitHub. So GitHub takes thousands of great programs. So if a person's writing code, GitHub grabs that particular code, and it works out the best possible code, and it creates the best possible AI solution for that particular application that we have over there. So it's a great use of 5IR. There's so many other ways. In agriculture, you have these things called a color sorter, where you simply take your beans and you drop it through this machine, and it knows the position of each particular bean, and then you can put all your rotten things together, and it will then shoot out with air jets and separate the rotten, the good, the ripe, the unripe, And so you'll end up with one bag of perfect product, one bag of medium, and one bag of downgrade product, or as many different ranges as you like within those. So those are fantastic. They're already self-drive tractors. They're already existing. Most of the big modern tractors have a self-drive console, so there is a driver over there, and he's busy on his WhatsApp and his Instagram while the tractor drives. It's a fact. With the air conditioner on and his playlist going, okay? I've been there, I've seen it. That's normally what happens in those. All he's got to do is when it gets to the end of the field, he's got to turn the tractor around and he's got to point it in the right direction, and then it just carries on doing its particular thing. Most of the grain farmers in the country are already using that technology, but it's gone one step further where there is not even a person on his Instagram. It's just the tractor like this with no one there. It's simply driving around. It knows the location of the field. It's great technology over here too. So you saw this 4 hour gave us efficiencies. So we need to add the community and the environment. That's what we need to do. So the way going forward is we can't get involved. 5 hour and all the things that you do can't get involved with destructive things that are happening. We can't do that because we're just going to shorten the life of the world. We're going to shorten the earth. We're going to shorten the life of it. Already I asked myself, how long will mankind be on this particular earth? Will it be 1,000 years? You know, and I'm like, oof, I don't know if we can get to 1,000 years. So the more we do now, the longer people can live on this particular earth over here. So this is back to 2010. It was so good. Moses Mabhida, Japan played Brazil. I went with a group of friends. Can you see I put a Japanese shirt on over there and a headband, and we were shining, weren't we? Weren't we shining? 2010 World Cup, we had such a good time. We were great. And now with batteries, we're going to shine again. Thank you.
Thank you again, Mr. Ponce, for that lovely presentation. Our next speaker is joining us online. He is Mr. Ziad Solomon, the Chief Commercial Officer and ExCo member at EOH. Prior to that role, Mr. Solomon was a Director and Chief Operating Officer for IBM Africa, a business that he served and grew in over his 13-year stay. He will be joining us online, if we can welcome him as well.
Are you able to hear me, and are you able to see my presentation?
We can hear you and see your presentation. If you can continue.
Are you able to hear? Where I was the Chief Operating Officer for the whole of Africa. Over and above my duties as a professional individual in the corporate organization, I also serve as the 4IR Chair for South Africa at BRICS, and also serve on 2 presidential commissions, the first being the DWA around digital work acceleration in terms of skills, and then the second portion around being the chair of 4IR for PPGI. For South Africa at BRICS, and also serve on 2 presidential commissions, the first being the DWA around digital work acceleration in terms of skills, and then the second portion around being the chair of 4IR for PPGI. Chair for South Africa at BRICS, and also serve on 2 presidential commissions, the first being the DWA around digital work acceleration in terms of skills, and then the second portion around being the chair of 4IR for PPGI for South Africa at BRICS, and also serve on 2 presidential commissions, the first being the DWA around digital work acceleration in terms of skills, and then the second portion around being the chair of 4IR for PPGI for South Africa at BRICS, and also serve on 2 presidential commissions, the first being the DWA. Program Director, I think we're getting an echo back. I'm not sure. For PPGI for South Africa at BRICS, and also serve on 2 presidential commissions, the first being the DWA. Program Director, I think we're getting an echo back. I'm not sure. Chair of 4IR for PPGI for South Africa.
We're trying to just see if we can rectify that issue. There seems to be an issue with the sound. We're trying to just see if we can rectify that issue. There seems to be an issue with the sound. We're trying to just maybe for the interest of time, see if we can rectify that issue. There seems to be an issue with the sound. Just go on to our next we're trying to just apologies about that. Maybe for the interest of time, see if we can rectify that issue. There seems to be an issue with the sound. Just go on to our next we're trying to just apologies about that. Maybe for the interest of time, see if we can rectify that issue. There seems to be an issue with the sound. Just go on to our next we're trying to just try. I'd like to welcome on stage Mr. Vusi Tembagwayo, who is the founding CEO of My Growth Fund and IC Knowledge Bureau. He is a venture capitalist, a renowned global business speaker, the author of Magna Carta of Expansionality, a business mogul who has successfully built and transformed business in South Africa and abroad. So if we could give him a round of applause as he makes his way to stage.
Good morning. Good morning. Let's try that again. Good morning. Great. I see a couple of us are stuck at the back. The VIP seats are open. But also being up here, it's quite daunting to be yelling at people right at the back. So if you are anywhere in the last 3 rows, please move forward. We've got some chairs available. Come and fill up here. Aesthetically, it also makes a big difference for, Madam CEO, with your permission. Aesthetically, it also makes a big difference for the footage, the stuff they're recording, the pictures they're taking, to have you guys fill up here. If you're in the last 3 rows, except for the project team working at the back on their laptops, please don't make me point you out. Come forward, both sides of the room. Thank you so much. If you're looking at the person next to you and asking them if you should move forward, the answer is yes. Very good. The future is going to come to those of us who are willing to come forward in life and be counted. Those of us who are willing to take responsibility, who understand and appreciate the moment that we are gifted with and that we are seized with. Madam CEO, thank you so much for the invitation to be here, to the board of the Institute, the MEC, and all protocol. Thank you so much for the invitation to come here and share thoughts with you. I must confess today that I come here with a bit of a heavy heart, because I think whilst the conversation we are having is necessary, it's uplifting, and all of those good things, we also need to be honest about where we are. And so with your permission, I'm going to take sufficient time to reflect on the moment we are in, and then to talk a bit about what that means for you and I, as, in particular you, because I can no longer be counted in the youth category. But in particular what it means for those of us who consider ourselves young people, those of us who believe that the best years of our lives are ahead of us still. So here's my question, and it's the question I'd like you to remember for the duration of our time here today. Is it possible to build a future in an environment that is obsessed about the past? That's the question. The fact that this room is scantily clad with young people when we're talking about innovation in Africa, in the southernmost tip of the darkest continent in the world, in the year 2022, is perhaps reflection enough about the things that we find important. Now, I don't think that looking at redressing the past and building an inclusive future are mutually exclusive. I think you can do both. But I think what's even more important is that you've got to ensure that your eye is constantly on the future whilst your heart is on fixing the past. None of us here, particularly those of us who are drivers, would ever drive the car looking at the rearview mirror. You look through the windscreen because where you're going is a determinant of whether or not you arrive there safely. So the question for us is, do we live in an environment and in a time where we are looking through the windscreen, or are we looking at the rearview mirror? To answer this test, I challenge any of you right now on any of your devices to go on social media and see what we're talking about. What is the conversation that we're seized about? If perhaps that's not enough of a litmus test, then watch the news on a daily and listen to what the conversation is that we're talking about. If you're looking for a broader case base, perhaps, more data points, then pick up a print piece of news, a newspaper, and read what it is that we're publishing and what it is we're talking about. And you will notice that we are obsessed about the past. Now, the past is many things, but the one thing it is not and will never be is open to change. The past, ladies and gentlemen, is immutable. It is what it is. The question for you and I to ask ourselves is, what are the lessons that we draw? And from those lessons, what is the picture of the future that we want? Let me make a confession. So, Madam CEO, I don't live in South Africa anymore. So I left South Africa, I want to say, July last year. And when I first moved into the Middle East, I had to get my, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why in a minute. But when I first moved to the Middle East, I had to get my medicals done. And so one of the ministers in the Middle East is a very dear friend of mine, and he had organized for me to go get my medicals done on a fairly short basis. And I went to this hospital that they have where I went to get my medicals done. And there were two people working in the hospital, an entire hospital. Two people. The one was an engineer, and the other was the security at the front. The entire clinic, the entire health facility was manned and operated by robots. That was last year, 2021. So I go in and I gave the little robot my passport, and it scanned my passport. Then it spoke back at me and told me who I was and when I arrived in the country. It read on the schedule what time my appointment was. As is my nature, I was early, so it asked me to wait. Another robot then arrived and offered me a cup of coffee. And the robot said, "How would you like your coffee, sir?" And I said, "I would like it like me, black, strong, and sweet." The robot said, "Will that be honey or sugar or sweetener?" The robot. My blood was taken by a nurse, a robotic nurse. My x-rays were done by nursing staff, robotic nursing staff. I say this for one reason, and one reason only, and I'm passionate about this point, so excuse the rise in volume and temperature. If you're not careful, young people in Africa again will become slaves of other nations because you are too busy obsessing over things that don't matter. And then tomorrow, when another nation has taken the risk and built the technology, off we go in trade missions and scanty clad, and we beg them to give us their technology. We auction our resources and our collective futures, and we pretend as if we're doing something forward-looking. My learned friend who was here before me, and I thoroughly enjoyed your presentation, sir, spoke about Elon Musk. I'm in the business of building ventures. We find and finance people who are looking at the future in a way different to other people. It is in my everyday work to find crazy people and to convince them that their crazy is good. And increasingly, I'm finding more and more young crazy South Africans who are saying South Africa is not the place for me to build crazy. Now, these may be difficult conversations, but umama used to say, "Iqiniso liyahlaba, kodwa umulalela limnandi." We can't learn from things we're not willing to acknowledge first. My father was murdered in the year 1998. My father was shot 9 times coming out of a store at Tembisa in the East Rand. We know who killed him. The police know who killed him. But for whatever strange reason, the people who killed him never faced the full might of the law. Why is it that even today, in the year of our Lord 2022, you can go to the local police station and open a case and the docket disappears? You're trying to tell me in an era where we have Amazon Web Services and Microsoft Azure and cloud computing, and you, with the phone that you're recording me on, young lady, you have more computing power in that phone than Neil Armstrong and the entire NASA had when they sent a man to the moon. And you're trying to tell me we're still using paper-based technology to run a criminal justice system? Now, to be fair, the criminal justice cluster has made incredible amounts of advancements, in particular in the recent past. Today, if you go to the local police station and open a case, it gets digitally logged. But now I ask a following question. How many of us do time and motion studies at a home affairs office? Why do you have to take a full day's leave to go and apply for your driver's license, as I did yesterday? I went to a driving center yesterday. I won't tell you which one, because when I go back to collect my drivers, I don't want to be accused of things. I went to a driving center yesterday because in the country to which I've moved, for me to move my driver's license to that country, I need a valid South African license, and my license has expired. So I went to this driver, and I sat in a queue waiting for an eye machine to work. There were 6 eye machines, one was working. Behind us was a cohort of staff who were sitting gathered as if umqimbi. Ngathi kuyaxoxwa nje kumnandi, having a lovely conversation and discussion with an entire queue that was building. Because even though the technology does the work, the people make the difference. So I ask the question, can we build a future when we are obsessed about the past? Madam CEO spoke very eloquently about technologies we have today to manipulate the weather. The country that I live today is built on desert. So you know what they've figured out to do? They've figured out how do they trap water, put it in pockets, and let it rain when they need the rain. Perhaps, then, the lesson for us to learn is that scarcity, in truth, is what drives innovation. Perhaps our burden and our sin both is that we live in an environment of abundance. abundant water, abundant greenery, fertile ground on which we can plant our food, abundant tracts of land, that there is an ownership paradox perhaps is a separate conversation, one that should not form part of this discussion. I want to challenge you, young people, that in today's environment, if you're not being laughed at, called names, ridiculed, mimicked, made a joke of, you're not building the future. Because the burden of innovators is to be misunderstood. Read any book in history and study any innovator you wish, and you realize that at the time of their existence they were misunderstood. They were the outliers. They were the ones about whom jokes were told around the braai, as we call it in South Africa. So for those of you here who, like me, are looking forward to having jokes told about you, those of you who are looking forward to being misunderstood, to being called names, I want to congratulate you. But for those of you who lack the courage of your talent, because really what it is when you are misunderstood is that you stand courageous in the gift that the God you praise has given you. The recognition that there is a special gift that was planted in you, and that's that gift that you must bring to the world. I'd like to make a separate point. Believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. By God's incredible grace, in the 37 years that I have been living on this little rock called planet Earth, I have been incredibly blessed. I don't for a moment underplay the blessings that God has given me, the grace that He has granted me every day. But 99% of my success, and by the way, it's a journey, it's never a destination. 99% of it is because I believe in me. I don't need you to believe in me. I tell me. I don't need you to tell me. When they say things about you, they'll say, "Zjele." Who must tell you? Tell yourself every day. Affirm yourself every day. It's only arrogance if you can't back it up. So back it up. Back it up with action. Back it up with initiative. Back it up with movement. Back it up with progress. Back it up. Your role is not to fit in. It's to be a standalone individual. That's how we build the future. Stand out and be an example and a difference to those who come after you. That's where we need to go. I want to encourage every single young person in this room, because there are some of us who come from broken backgrounds, where you walk into a room and you don't believe in you. There are some of you perhaps whose command of the English language is not as well littered as mine. And for you, I say, watch Top Gear. That was a joke. It was an actual joke. I believe in this, that every room I walk into is by invitation, even if the people in the room are not aware yet. That every space I occupy is necessary for me to occupy because I bring a perspective and a life experience that nobody else can bring. And so for every single one of you, in particular those of you who are about to get into the real world, believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. When you show up as yourself fully and completely. Knowing that that job you're applying for, that role you want, that opportunity you're looking for, that funding you're applying for is yours too. Because you too are capable. I was sharing this with one of the board members in our firm, beginning of the week. And so I'm in South Africa for a week every month. And we're having a conversation. He says to me, so how's it going? I said, yeah, it's going great. And then he says, you know, you've been kind of in and out now for about a year. What's the biggest difference that you see? And this was the honest answer. It isn't that other parts of the world are more capable than us. It isn't that young people from other parts of the world are more talented than any of you in the room, or that they have more initiative or more intellectual capacity. You know what it is? It's that they only share the good news about themselves. We only share the bad news about ourselves. So of course the whole world is going to think we stink because we only talk about the things that stink. We don't talk about the things that are going well. And if we don't talk about the things that are going well to each other, what more do we expect of the world then? What is this insipid culture, this insidious culture of insisting on only focusing on bad news? In our office and in my home both, we banned the TV. So we cancelled the multi-choice. That DSTV story, cancelled. Don't want it. We used to subscribe to the newspaper for our Sandton office. They would deliver the newspaper every day. Cancelled. Not interested. Because what are we consuming? 24-hour news. You know what you're watching? A 15-minute loop of negative nonsense. So-and-so stole this, so-and-so. It changes your life in no way. Perhaps there is a reason why in their countries they're sharing only good news and in yours they're sharing only bad. Perhaps there is a mental conditioning afoot, a culture they want to breed of complacency, darkness, where we genuinely believe that all of us, in order for us to accumulate a semblance of wealth, must be corrupt. South Africa is the only country, even though it is my home, where people ask me what is the source of my wealth. In other countries, they ask me, how do we learn from how you generated it? What a joke. Because the question, what is the source of your wealth, is the same question as who do you think you are? There is a difference between a person who says, who are you, and who do you think you are? Who are you is a question. It's genuine and it's meant. Who do you think you are is an implied insult. What is your source of wealth when you're a 37-year-old young black male who grew up in a township is an insult. It is to say, we can't track you on the tender register, so we tate imali. Because the truth of it, let's be honest, and I talk here specifically to the young black people now, you are only allowed two forms of wealth. BEE or tenders. That's it. Give me one example of one of us we celebrate who's generated wealth any other way but those two. Don't worry, I'll wait. Now I mention this because here we are, Converge talking about innovation. And let me tell you, I don't want to die a poor innovator. I want to be rich. I want money. I want to chop it. No enjoyment. Don't worry about my future. My future not go anywhere. I'm going to think about my future next year. Any little money, no enjoyment. So we've created this interesting paradox here at home where thinkers, academics, and innovators aren't seen as the echelons of wealth accumulation. Then you wonder why, in other parts of the world, who rises to the top of the wealth strata? Innovators, thinkers, people who pursue deliberate study and education. You want to be a good banker in the US? You'd better get into the study of banking and learn about banking. You can't just be a banker. We have a long way to go. And so, Madam CEO, with your permission, I want to say that before we even consider what role we play in the fifth industrial revolution, we need to consider who will we be in that fifth industrial revolution. Who will we be? How will we be remembered? How will the story of your generation as young people be told? Madam MC, I'm cognizant of time, so please keep me honest. I want to say to each and every single one of you young people here today, lift up your eyes. Lift your head, look up. The world is a big place. Put your phone down, because that's not where the world is. You're missing it. Let me give you a sense of context. There are 7.2 billion people walking the surface of Earth today. 7.2 billion. And of those, just marginally over 60 million are in South Africa. If you are innovating and building for South Africa only, you're building for less than 1% of the global total population. Less than 1%. You know, the power of the Americas, say whatever you will about them, similar to the power of China, say whatever you will about them, is that they will build for their local environment first as what we call in venture a beachhead market, but they will constantly build technologies that the rest of the world can adopt. So today we are meeting here, and I can guarantee you there are components, utilizations, and technologies in each and every single space that are manufactured in either one of those countries. This microphone, the light, the speaker system, the audio environment, the recording, that screen. We don't even think about these things. We're busy with a due diligence. I can't tell you much details about the company, perhaps at a name level, but it's run by 4 very interesting young people. One of them is a young man from Nigeria who has since become a fairly good friend of mine. And this electric company is an EV company, but different to, I suppose, to Tesla, and they don't compete in the manufacture of EVs, is what they have figured out to do is how do you finance on a by-use basis electric vehicles? So if you were to ever get a Tesla or a Lucid or a Rivian or a Polestar, all of these are electric cars. If you were ever to get one and you didn't want to pay for the car up front, but you also didn't want to hire purchase it, you didn't want to go to the bank and loan money, pay a sum total to the dealership, and then pay it off over a period of time. Rather, what you wanted to do was pay for the utilization of that car. Because if there is one thing we've learned about the world, moving from the 3rd, 4th, to now the 5th industrial revolution, is we've moved from an era of ownership to utilization. You don't need to own the car in a different city, you just utilize Uber. And so, these young people have built an incredible business where you can get an electric vehicle and pay use per kilometer, just per kilometer. So I'm talking to this young man who's built this business, and I'm like, this is interesting. He's running me through the deck. I'm looking at the underlying technology, the engineering team, and one of the things that sticks out about this particular team is that it has a skew for young, talented Africans. So I asked him, I said, Ray, when do you think Africa will be ready for this kind of business? When do you think? Because even though we focus on creating jobs, let me say what I said at a job summit and I was never invited back. Bazalwan, there is no such thing as job creation. Doesn't exist. You don't create jobs. You create value. And after value is created, the task to perform the work, to deliver that value, creates the jobs. So when you hear any person on any podium talk about a job creation strategy, someone in that conversation is the joke and someone else is the punchline. There is no such thing as job creation. It's value creation. So what a mandate then you have as young people and young innovators today. Because you are the creators of the value of the future. You know where the value lies. You know the problems that need to be solved. Let's talk a bit about Web 3. My learned friend mentioned it. Where I come from, kuna society in our township. Yet those societies are not coordinated. They're not sitting on a centralized ledger. What would happen if one of us built on the blockchain, using our own token by every single community, a blockchain platform where each of those societies can subscribe and can commit capital to their program? And the blockchain would hold that capital and would choose to make whatever investments it wants to make on behalf of the entire community. Well, what would happen if we could do that? Do you know what would happen? Let me tell you. In Umlazi, if you were to do this, then each and every single household that has each and every single person in that household contributing a marginal amount of money, a notional amount of money, into that blockchain startup, which is a centralized coordinating platform driven by the community itself, would all of a sudden become a savings scheme. So when somebody wants to loan money, who do they loan it from? When roads need to be fixed, who's fixing it? When electricity needs to be bought in bulk, who's buying it? We are, because we run our own platform. There are some of us in this room who still need to learn what Web 3 is. Forget Bitcoin. That's the trinket. Learn a bit about the underlying technology and the use cases. There's a young man today in Rwanda, and I'm going over to Rwanda later in the week for Shogun, which is the Commonwealth Fair. There's a young man in Rwanda who's built a drone startup that uses blockchain technology to deliver medicinal products as well as pharmaceutical products into the most remote parts of the country using drones. South Africa's 63 million people. We are the most advanced economy in the continent, bar none. We have the most advanced infrastructure, the best road network, and perhaps until 20 years ago, the best rail network too. We, without question, have the most advanced and sophisticated financial services system in this country. There are European countries who don't have financial services system as advanced as the one you enjoy here. There are first world advanced countries where banks don't yet have apps. And yet a small little economy with 12 million people that in 1994, when we got our liberation, was seized with a genocide, is now teaching us about innovation. Leadership. 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 The future is four things. It's asynchronous. Today, you can learn as and when you want to learn. I grew up in a time when a teacher was called mistress. That was another joke, but I can see we're slow to come by this morning. Yes, mistress, and you put up your hand. Today, I look at my kids, you know who the teacher is? It's the iPad. It's the iPad. I'm busy doing a course myself at one of the top business schools in the world. I haven't been there yet. I go later on in the year. I'm taking all my classes online. But not only this, it's not like I'm taking the class live online. I'll take the class when I want to take it. That's what we call asynchronous learning. It means the education is constantly there. You access it as and when it works for you. This is the future of where we're going. The future is asynchronous. 6 years ago, I was speaking at a conference and I said to someone, I'm still yet to understand why the Taxi Association hasn't launched an app where you can go into the app and see which taxi is available in which rank. What is the aggregate time that it takes for that taxi to move and get full from one rank to another? What's the cost? Do you see what happened a week ago? Santaco launched that app. 6 years. But the world has moved today. If I'm the taxi owner, I need an app that not only tells me this, I also need an app, what is my average wear and tear on my tires? How aggressive is my driver accelerating and decelerating with the rising cost of fuel that costs me money in my back pocket? What is the real rate of inflation in terms of the products that I need to buy to keep my taxi running? And what's the actual cost of inflation that I'm pushing through to my customers? These are all solutions that we should be building now, and we have the technology to build them now. That's the role of us innovators. The second thing the future is peer-to-peer. It's perhaps the most exciting thing about the future we're going to. It's decentralized, it's peer-to-peer. It's going to be you and me getting into an agreement and an arrangement together. And we're going to keep each other honest to that agreement and arrangement. And the third thing the future is socially constructed and coordinated. Societies themselves are going to construct and coordinate each other and their own activities. Now, I've said a lot. Let me end by saying the following. What does it mean to be a South African? Perhaps for those of us who have not yet had the opportunity to leave the confines of our borders, it's not a question you've had to think about. But when you travel to other parts of the world and you have to introduce yourself, when you land at another airport and somebody at immigration asks you for your passport and you pull out that green barcoded document, when you're talking to somebody and you say, "Ya, laka," and somebody says, "Are you South African?" What does that mean? I'm excited about the role of young people because I think you have the opportunity to answer that question. What does it mean to be a South African? You know, the Americans are the Americans because they have the American dream, and they know what it means. It's a kitchen, it's a pot on every kitchen, a chicken in every pot, a car for every family, and a home for that family. That's the simple American dream. What's ours? What's ours? For those of you here who are parents, when you're raising your child and you tell them you are South African, what does that mean? What is the commitment that we as a country make to every citizen that we will hold true to ourselves? And so I want to say to you young people, forget the sideshow. It's a sideshow. It has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with you. Forget the sideshow. Forget the rally. Forget the food parcel. Forget the t-shirt. It's not going to change your life. Focus on the things that matter. What does it mean when we say we are South Africans? What does that mean? What is the universal standard we can hold ourselves to? I have a theory. I'll posit it for you. We are the country that constantly punches above its weight. We are the people who show up when they tell us we can't arrive. We are the ones who beat them when they didn't even know we were competing. You don't believe me? Ask Wade van Niekerk. You think I'm joking? Ask Caster Semenya. That's who we are. We show up unannounced, uninvited, and then we own the show. We land in a country and live in a friend's back room, and a year later we're hosting the largest comedy show in the world, Trevor Noah. That's who we are. So if that's who we can be in sports, and in arts, and in business, then who are we in innovation? When do we stop researching other countries and become the country that is researched? When do we stop referencing academic documents from other places and become the place to which people come to reference academic documents. When do we do that? And don't be fooled. There is excellence abound in South Africa. We are building world-first technologies on a daily basis. Daily. We have to be the place where the innovators, the outliers, the true architects of our future find home. We have to be that place. If you ever find yourself in a conversation that's non-value adding, exit it. If you ever find yourself consuming news that's the shite show, turn it off. If you ever find yourself talking to somebody that's speaking this country down, leave that conversation. I started with a personal story, and I said to you, I don't live here anymore. It's not because I don't believe in my country. It's because, sadly, the best place for me to build my country is from outside. In my business, global capital, the markets in which I move, require me to be elsewhere for me to do the difference and work here that I want to do. There was a local municipality in South Africa, I won't mention it, we spoke to them for 4 years for us to run a particular program to empower innovators and startups. 4 years. Countless council meetings. I don't know how many dinners I had to pay for with that mayor. And you know what we got at the end? $1. There are 2 countries in Africa, it'll be 3 by the end of this week, where we would have been present for less than a year. And in each of them, the governments have committed just marginally over $1 million for us to run the same program I thought we could run here. You have an incredible future, young South Africans. It's bright and it's exciting. But I want you to recognize that that future does not lie on the lips of a politician. It lies in your hands. It's for you to build. If there is something in your community you don't like, fix it. If there is a solution you believe our country needs, build it. If they don't understand you, build it anyway. If they laugh at you, definitely build it. They call you crazy, know that you are on the right path. Because, as that old Apple advert says, the ones who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who do. Ngiyabonga, Madam CEO, for the invitation. Ngibonga ukuthi ngiphe ithuba lokuthi ngifike futhi la ekhaya. Sizobonisana, sitshelane, sixoxisane. Madam CEO, a lasting thought for you. We are a people of struggle. We're good at this. We know how to struggle. We know how to fight for ourselves. The entire history of who we are as a people is a history of struggle. The history these young people are taught is a history of struggle. When we were left out of the system, we knew how to fight for ourselves. When our human rights were taken from us, we knew how to fight for ourselves. We spared no expense. We knew it would be a multi-generational project, but that freedom was guaranteed. What are we fighting for today? What are we liberating ourselves from? The good doctor said it well, and I echo her sentiments, that in the future the currency of the world is information. And I hope that the young people in this room are equal to the task of helping our country build systems that will enable us to fight into that future, because we so desperately need it. To each and every single one of you today that we are celebrating, congratulations. To those of you that did not like my presentation, But to those of you in this room that are still doubting yourself, believe in yourself. The cost for believing in yourself is zero. So believe in yourself. Thank you so much.
Thank you again to our keynote speaker, Mr. Tembekwayo, for that lovely talk, encouraging us all to be self-starters and innovators. We are going to go on to a tea break now. We will continue with more presentations after the break while we try and resolve the issue, the technical issue we had a bit earlier. So if we can break now and come back in 15 minutes, so that's at 11:15. We'll continue with 2 more presentations, then we will have our awards, and then we will continue with the program thereafter. Thank you.
Absolutely. I was saying I'm putting my CEO, so Susie, enterprise development.